Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I see we have quite a few people that have joined us already. We have about 80 people registered for this webinar. We're currently seeing people log on. Just give you couple more seconds. And we're probably at about 50% of what we expect. So I think we'll start. And I want to welcome all of you to this fabulous webinar, Leading Your Agency Through Change and Positioning for Success in a Post-COVID World. I think we also have to bear in mind that we may be in a resurgence as well, so that may change some of our answers to some of our questions. So let me introduce myself. I am Helen Irving. I am the president and CEO of Live On New York. Live On New York is the organ procurement organization that covers New York City, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley. And you may ask yourself, what on earth is the CEO and president of an organ procurement agency doing on a webinar about support services? Well, it seems that we all have very similar issues. How do we lead our agencies is the same for you as it is for me in organ donation. We really do share the same concerns in the continuum of care that we have to offer all of our families and our patients. And I also have remote staff and have issues with, how do I capture real-time data from the patients that we see as well. So I'd like to welcome you to this exciting webinar. We have two great speakers here to talk to you about how they see this world changing. The first I'd like to introduce is Alex Humanick. He is the CEO and managing member of Skylands Family Support. He leads one of the biggest or largest support coordination agencies in New Jersey. He's been instrumental in growing the company from founding it in 2012 to one of the largest community providers, pulled in more than 100 years of collective experience from multidisciplinary business professionals to provide support coordination services for families with adult children in special needs. Alex has been recognized by the governor of New Jersey for exemplary service to foster children, among his many other recognitions and awards. Our other guest speaker is William England, no relation to me being British, and he is the founder and president of Disability Services and Advocacy, LLC. And he's one of the pioneers in the field of support coordination in New Jersey. From the beginning of his career in 2001, he's always had a strong belief in individual choice. And in 2003, he built DSNA on the principles of teamwork and accountability, instituting strong controls and an emphasis on inclusive communications to ensure everyone involved in the support of an individual area are on the same page together to make the life of the person they support the best it can be. So before we start with our discussion, we're not going to have PowerPoint presentations. We all decided that in the era of Zoom, we're zoomed out and we're a little tired of PowerPoint, but we will have a robust conversation. And you will note that we have you all on mute. We would ask that during the conversation, please put any questions you have in the Q&A, and we will get to those questions and circle back to them towards the end of our discussion. So we hope for a lively conversation. And again, I am here as your facilitator today. And so I'm going to be the one posing the questions, and let's see how these guys do, right? So just a general question, and I think I'm going to start with Bill. We are living in tumultuous times with the current COVID pandemic. There are a lot of changes both in the business and political world. So what do you see as some of the changes that you're facing right now in your industry?
Well, I think the biggest change that we are facing is how the state is reacting to the COVID crisis and how that filters down into changes in policies, procedures, and support platforms, and what that results in planning. In New Jersey, we have individualized service plans that we can modify at a drop of a hat. Well, the drop of the hat was COVID, and they shut down the day programs, and therefore families had to figure out how they were going to get supports to support their person now at home. And we had to revise the plans, communicate the change first to the family and the individual, revise the plans or communicate with them, have discussions with them, decide how they want to respond to it. Do they want to hire? They were able to now hire themselves and get paid. Is that what they wanted to do? Did they want to hire staff to come in? Was that an option given COVID? Some people didn't want to do that for fear of infection, things on that line. Other people weren't quite sure how they were going to handle it. And then DDD opened remote services for day programming. So just like we're doing this conference here. And that meant more changes to the plans. So what was probably fairly stable, unless it was a new plan and a renewal period, became a very active, revised planning process for literally all our consumers. So it put a tremendous amount of additional pressure on our coordinators to change the plans, communicate with the families and the individuals, make sure everybody was on the same page, that the providers were on the same page. So it added a lot more pressure. And also, it added a sense that we ended up being very much the support coordinator, being the emotional support for the families. They were now dealing with trying to care for their person at home. You know, we had many family members, you know, crying on the phone about how difficult it was. And therefore we're there to try to support them. And also at the same time, support our coordinators. They no longer could physically see their people. So they were feeling more isolated. So those are some of the, you know, broad concepts that we're sort of dealing with and trying to struggle with and work through.
Right. And Alex, you know, you're dealing with children. So how did that impact you?
Actually, Helen, we work with adults as well.
Oh, adults as well. Yep.
What we've noticed too is, first and foremost, it's going well beyond the effects of the illness is what we're noticing and we're seeing. You know, we're seeing a major increase in mental health issues, food instability, housing instability that we're working with. These usually go far beyond the scope of what a support coordination agency does. So our staff are seeing an increased number of requests, like Bill mentioned. We're providing a lot of emotional support to families. We have families where mom and dad are unemployed. Their son or daughter that used to go to a day program is no longer there. So they're not getting the behavioral supports. They might not be getting speech or occupational therapy that they did in person. It's gone to remote. And that presents certain challenges, especially when you're dealing with people who are used to a routine. Right. So, you know, what we're really working with is that as an agency, we're looking to provide progressive tools and technology to our staff, as well as supporting our staff and adding additional benefits for our employees, like an employee assistance program. We've noticed that a lot of our staff are just having a lot of trouble dealing with all of the mental health issues that are coming our way, and trying to support those. And that's been very stressful for our staff. We're also trying ways to streamline technology and help them to do their job a little more efficiently. Like Bill mentioned, we're getting a lot of revisions and plan changes coming very, very rapidly and quickly. Where we used to process maybe a few hundred a week, now it seems like we're processing a few hundred revisions a day, which has been very difficult for our entire staff. You know, services now will be closing again in New Jersey, so we're going to be looking at another wave of revisions. So it's just been a very difficult time for everybody, and having to flip and adjust over very rapidly to working remotely. You know, support and care management is a relationship-based business. We enjoy being out in the field and seeing our families. We enjoy working with them. We often feel that they are part of our family. So not being able to see them has also been very detrimental to our staff now. And now we're going on, 8 months of not seeing some of our families and just working with them remotely. So that's been really particularly hard for our families and our staff.
Right. And just to comment a little bit more, because this is something I found in my own organization from what you said, the care of your own staff. I think as a leader, I somewhat underestimated the impact on my staff. Bill, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting what I have found and what my people have been asking for, particularly my lead managers. They want to be more engaged. They want to be more involved in the decision-making of the company. So, and they've come up with great ideas. We hadn't implemented this, and maybe we should have, and maybe it was an area that I wasn't as focused on. But we have now an employee engagement webinar that we do, where we have games that people play. We bring people together. We have recipes that we're sharing. We didn't really do a lot of that before, and now at the impetus of my team, we're doing it. And so I do feel like we are trying to listen to our staff, trying to hear how to get them more engaged and more involved, not feel so isolated. They they reached out and said, how can we create right now our visits are suspended, as we had indicated. But we do know at some point in time they're going to come back. And how is that going to look? How are we going to create a policy? And my team came up, did team meetings, developed an internal policy. We reviewed it as a management team, and we're going to implement it. So delegating responsibility does seem to me to be a great way of trying to increase engagement and increase their involvement and buy-in to dealing with what we're dealing with.
Yeah. So Alex, what would you say are the top challenges that agencies like yourself are facing in this upcoming resurgence?
It's just actually just processing the workload has been very difficult. It's been very costly, very expensive for us, and we've not received any additional funding through COVID by any the Division of Developmental Disabilities. We're doing probably twice the amount of revisions, or even 3 times the amount of revisions, with no additional funding. And we're also seeing very complex, costly cases where people are facing homelessness, that the loss of services, just intensive case management requests have skyrocketed. We've also, again, noticed a lot of people seeking out a home placement for their son or daughter with pretty intense levels of support. So those are very costly operations for us to maintain and pull through, so it's been very costly for us as an agency. And again, not only on top of that, we're still dealing with the stress that our staff are dealing with, the families are dealing with, the individuals are dealing with, and just trying to maintain some kind of harmony in individuals' lives has just been very challenging and difficult.
Yeah. So, with every challenge, there comes opportunity. As we, start to see the fog lift and hopefully move forward over the coming months out of this. Bill, what do you see as some of these opportunities that lie ahead for you as an organization?
Well, I think one of the things that I sort of realized when I created Disability Services and Advocacy is I wanted to have a remote-based company. I wanted people living in the communities that they were going to serve so they could learn the services in that community, and it could be a resource to individuals and families. So we've been set up on an internet-based platform for case management since 2002. And so that was my vision for the company from the very beginning. So I know we have people from a variety of states that maybe work remotely already, but in New Jersey, we are a more compact state. And I'd say the traditional platform was location-based services. And I wanted people working out of their homes, and I wanted it to be connected via the internet because I felt that was the most efficient way to deliver the services. So I've continued with that. And this is where technology really became the foundation of my company. And connecting and having efficient use of technology has really been sort of what I think has made partly what has made our company successful, to be honest with you. And it's the same conceptual technology the field worker actually produces in trying to keep track of the activities of your people, ensuring that you have documentation of your billables, that you can survive audits and things along that line. That's been sort of a hallmark. And then the accountability and making sure that the coordinator's pay is tied in to what the agency gets paid. And that's also been very helpful. So what I see is increasingly you want to have good, solid documentation, good, solid process and procedures, and then training to documentation, and process. That's really where the opportunity lies, I think, as you move forward. More systematized, more organized, more process-driven, the more successful people will be.
So, and a question for Alex, bouncing off of the same idea, do you see your business growing in the next year?
We see a lot of consolidation in our industry, and the larger agencies and the agencies that are ready to embrace technology and new ways to streamline the business are certainly going to grow quite a bit. We're poised to really start pushing our boundaries, looking for opportunities to merge and or acquire smaller agencies. That's right. Going to be our focus moving forward. And also, working with the smaller agencies to also improve their services as well too.
Right. So,
go ahead.
I just lost myself here. Sorry. So, how do you see? If you put on the hat of somebody in a smaller agency, you've got a pretty large agency, right? So, if you think of somebody in a smaller agency who, like you, is going through this, what advice would you give for the smaller agency as to how can they grow in this market right now? Or do they just, hunker down and ride out the next 18 months? What would be your strategy that you would advise?
My advice is to really focus on providing your staff the tools to do the job well and supporting your staff. Any kind of care management is completely, again, a relationship-based business. You're doing your families a disservice if you have constant turnover. So really, to be successful, you have to maintain your staff. You have to provide the staff the tools they need, the compensation that allows them to be financially successful. You really need to focus on that. Focusing on your staff will really help your business to grow. Again, the last thing you want to do is introduce your families to a new support coordinator every 3 or 4 months because you're hitting a reset button. Many of our coordinators have been with us for 5 years and they know the families. They know ahead of the game what's going to happen and can make suggestions and help the family. And they actually feel like, we actually, our whole business philosophy is we want the individual we serve to have a wonderful life. We want their families to have a little less stress knowing that there is a true partner on their side to help them through the joys of life, help them through the toughest points of life, but also be there for them continually. And the best way to do that and grow your business is to keep and maintain great staff.
Mm-hmm. So from operations, Bill, what would you recommend that agency owners should focus on? How do we stay efficient?
Well, in my mind, I think you have to start with a vision. You have to have, as an owner, as a lead manager for an organization, you have to have a vision in your mind of what is a great support coordinator or a case manager. What do they have to deliver in order to be thought of as an expert in their field of supporting people with disabilities? And I've always felt, and I feel pretty strongly with that, in our training, I emphasize the why. People, a lot of times, you don't want a coordinator that's processing paperwork. You want a coordinator that is explaining the process and the why of the process so that they understand that this procedure and this new rule that came down didn't just come down from the sky as making our life more difficult just because it's here and they decided upon it. But most times, most rules, most procedures, there's a rational reason for implementing them. They may be a little bit difficult to implement, but if you can explain why they're doing it, it makes sense. In New Jersey, when we switched to our fee-for-service system and we opened up non-traditional services, such as gym memberships that aren't paid directly through Medicaid, but now get paid through a fiscal intermediary, wow, it made all this complicated decision-making on the part of the families. But then when you explain to them that now you have access to services that are community-based, that was never there before. So yes, it's more complicated, but here's the benefit. Now you can find a music class for your person. You can find an art class for your person. You can explain how this new system helps them even though it's complicated, it helps them.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
explaining the why. And so then, as Alex said, what you do is you support the coordinator so that they can explain the why, and then you give them processes and procedures that they can do things quickly and efficiently. And then you give them managerial support so that if they run into a situation where they get hammered with lots of changes in a particular month, you have managers that can come in and help them get it done. So
Mm-hmm.
then they don't feel that they're not supported. You survey them to see, do they feel supported? My people feel supported. Like Alex said, we don't have turnover. I mean, well, we do. We have about maybe 2 out of a staff of about 45. I think I have 2 coordinators a year.
Yeah. That's really good.
So it's good. And my people are happy. You know, I do surveys. I do skip level meetings. My managers manage directly. I talk to the coordinators directly. I have 3 meetings a month where I'm talking to the coordinator saying, how are we doing? What do we need to address? What do we need to do? So as Alex said, you're constantly touching, you're constantly trying to identify what the issues are, and you're constantly trying to make them be great. You want them to be perceived as great in the eyes of the people they serve.
Mm-hmm. So Alex, can you talk a little bit more about your client satisfaction? You know, Bill touched on employee satisfaction. Any tricks of the trade, you know, with your clients? You know, how do you survey your clients? And, you know, how do you take that pulse check?
We do annual surveys, and they've always been excellent. And what really is a good testament to a good agency is that you're not having families leave you. You know, if you're having families leave you, then there is an issue. Since our inception, I think out of the nearly 1,000 people we serve, we maybe have had less than a dozen that felt that we weren't a good agency or a good fit for them. So again, it's building that relationship. It's keeping your families happy, engaged, letting them know that you have a genuine interest, that you care about them genuinely, that you're not just here just to make a few dollars, that you want to make their life better. And that has to be brought from the top down, that, you know, your family should be able to talk to the CEO of any company and let them know how you're doing. Speak to them, chat with them. And I know Bill does this quite a bit as well, too. We're constantly talking to families. You know, I probably get upwards of 200 emails a day and probably 30 to 40 calls from families. Just,
wow.
You know, want to touch base, check in. And it's sometimes difficult, but we do really focus on keeping our families engaged and letting them know that we're there for them at any point in their life.
So I know Bill mentioned he had a platform for his coordinators from a documentation perspective. Is most documentation in your field still paper?
We as an agency have moved almost to 100% paperless. We use technology, embrace technology. It streamlines time. We use technology to reduce our costs. If we're scanning and having people sign documents all the time, it's just costly. It's not practical. The more we can do online and the less paper, the better it is for everybody. You know, it's less likely that documents would be lost. They tend to be more accurate when they're done electronically. And much more efficiently. If you can get something done in 2 steps rather than 4 or 5, it reduces your cost. And truly, with care management agencies, support coordination agencies, the only place we can really make a difference in our bottom line is reducing our costs. And and agencies have to embrace technology to reduce our cost. You can't skimp on labor. The only thing you do is embrace technology and, again, reduce your cost.
I would assume that your error rate is reduced as well. Your data errors are much less. You've probably got a higher level of data integrity, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we actually, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
Okay. I think Alex touched on it a little bit. We also have a document library that's online. So literally all the documents that DDD produces, which they also have that are accessible, but we also have them accessible with our documents, with other documents that maybe they don't have that are other disability oriented supports. we have available to our coordinators 24/7. So any new updates that we get from DDD go into our document library. Provider literature that we get go into our document library. Everything is accessible 24/7, and we sort of built it that way. And we utilize technology for, approving all our plans. Everything is online. Approving all our MTs. Everything is online. Everything is integrated into a payroll process, and where we do pay people based on their productivity. So we do an hourly rate, and then they get paid based on completing their initial plan and completing their monthly monitoring tool. And that's the bulk of their pay. So, and then we tie in that whole approval process into billing. So in a space of 2 minutes, when we get the pre-authorization file from Medicaid, or from DDD to submit to Medicaid, we can have our billing done and ready to go.
Right.
So everything is integrated, everything is processable, and everything is documented. We review every case, every consumer is reviewed with a manager every single month. Then the manager reviews with me every single consumer and highlights the ones that we have to triage, and whether I need to be involved, or what has to be done where we're at in this particular case. So, we spend a lot of time monitoring how we're doing, how these consumers are doing, how the families are doing, what we need to do to help them. As Alex said, the whole goal is you're here to make their lives better. And so that has to be what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, the number one mission, right? Improving quality of life, number one. So Bill, or actually Bill and Alex, but I'm going to turn to Bill first. State and federal regulations, the three of us live in a very regulated world, right? So Bill, with Medicaid being a big part of your agency business, what can agencies do to position themselves from changes that you see coming from the regulatory updates? How do you keep on top of that moving forward?
I will tell you that when we began back in 2012, there was another agency that we worked with that was growing pretty much as fast as Alex and I were growing. And they got into some trouble with DDD, and they started doing audits and found out that they didn't have the documentation to prove that they had done visits, that the person that was signing off on the monitoring tool actually was there. And it put the fear of God in me. It literally put the fear of God in me and said, my God, I have to prove proof of contact. I don't want Medicaid to come down, do a percentage audit of my client base, find 3 or 4 or 5 problems, and then extrapolate it out to my entire customer base and ask for $100,000 back. I said, Dear God, I can't have that happen. So I have built my agency around documentation. We have proof of contact, telephone calls, and this field worker does the exact same thing. And that's what makes it so exciting. And they have features that even enhance what we do, but we have proof of contact. We have, signature pages for visits. We have telephone calls, proof of contact. If I get audited, I can prove how long we spent on that phone call, and I can show them the documentation. When my auditor comes in and they ask, well, what fraud controls do you have? They look at me and they say, my God, nobody could question this. And it's true. Nobody can question what we've done. So to me, Medicaid audits in New Jersey, they're sort of cursory right now, but for support coordination, not necessarily for the other providers, but for support coordination, since it's new, they really haven't gotten as engaged. But we do know it's coming. And we do know that you need to have the documentation that's required to prove continuing education credits, that your coordinators that you hired have the education criteria that DDD requires and the experience. You need to be able to prove that. All those things need to be documented, and you have to have staff that ensures that documentation is there, and processes. As Alex said, everything is a process. Everything is online. Everything is accessible, both for my administrative staff. We review every document. Every document is approved. So these are all important processes that if you don't have, you're leaving yourself open to being shut down, for God's sake. And so that's the Medicaid risk in this system is so huge and so scary that I really focused exclusively, very heavily on it.
Yeah, I mean, I know in New York we have a strong Medicaid audit program as well, which results in a lot of funding being returned. So it is quite daunting. Just a reminder for folks, if you do have any questions, to please pop them in the Q&A or in the chat box. We'll check both. But if there's anything that comes to mind that you'd like to ask Bill or Alex, please let us know so that I'll pose those questions to them shortly. So, today's climate, the ability to work remotely is incredibly important. How do you manage a remote staff? How do you manage that and still grow? What's the key? I struggle with the remote staff, worrying that they're okay. I cover, a third of New York State. Most of my staff I may only see once every 3 months in person. And this is pre-COVID. Now it's worse, right? So how do you keep that engagement going with a remote workforce?
I'd be happy to jump in with that one.
Go, Alex.
We provide online forums for our staff to continually chat and talk and bounce ideas again. We really pride ourselves in hiring professionals and treat them as professionals, allow everybody to speak openly and freely, to share ideas across the agency. We have, again, multiple layers of support for our staff to keep them engaged and busy. We have basically triage managers that handle the situations that get a little sticky beyond the realm of normal support coordination issues. And again, it's just having the tools available for your staff to do their job. Like Bill mentioned, we have an online library as well to grab information, and we're also all available 24/7 if there's ever emergencies or issues that really need immediate attention. That's truly the thing that you need to do. And again, it's empowering and educating your staff and giving them the tools to do the work.
And I will say that,
Right.
and I agree. Well, sorry, I was going to add.
No, keep going.
Okay, I want to second what Alex said. I also feel that a remote environment is very attractive. And it was one of the selling pieces that I have for families that have adults or children with disabilities that want to work with us. They like the flexibility of being able to work out of home and to set their schedule based on their needs. We don't micromanage our people. I do not micromanage their daily schedules. I tell them their responsibility is to respond within 24 to 48 hours to inquiries, to renew the plans and produce the revisions that are being requested, to submit their monitoring tools and get them done on a regular basis. But we don't micromanage people. We give them a tremendous amount of flexibility. And then we support them with education. So to stay connected, every month we have training. I do management and myself do webinar trainings every single month. We update them on what's happening with DDD, any new procedures, policies that are coming down that we feel are impactful get emailed out immediately, but then get reviewed in the monthly training. We also have engagement with our managers. Like I said before, they meet monthly, review every case with their coordinators. And of course, they're available whenever there's issues. They're a phone call away. I'm a phone call away. I know, Alex, I get phone calls, all the time at all hours of the day, and I take them all. So, it's what you have to do. But I do look at remote work as attractive. When I do surveys, one of the things that my staff say to me, one of the real things I love about the job is the flexibility.
Mhm.
And so I feel that's very, very valuable. And they know that I'm not there to micromanage. I'm there to say, you get your work done. I trust you as professionals. We do track everything. We do monitor things. We do check up. But I trust you, and it seems to work.
Yeah, so we've got some questions starting to arrive in the chat box. One, I'm going to save one a little bit, and we can come back to it. But I'm going to ask you a little bit about technology, and what role do you see technology playing in this area? And products like Field Worker, what are the benefits of that? And then how do you, to tie back into a question we just got asked, is what can you do to help your staff accept adopting technology? Some of us aren't as technology savvy. We may be a little more frightened of it, right? You've got staff that are historically, not very open to change. So I think this is a multi-level question. One is, where do you see technology playing a role? And then given how there are generational differences, how do you get your staff engaged to embrace new technology?
Embracing new technology is absolutely key and vital to the success of an organization. And we are an organization, probably our average employee is in their 50s, and they're working, we're a little all not technologically very proficient, but we're learning it. And it's providing them the opportunities to learn in a way to become proficient. We have staff on board that are available 24/7 if there's any IT issues, any technical issues. Onboarding our staff we've made it a key component that they are aware of the technologies we use and that we will train them in them. That's one of the first things we do right off the bat, is let them know the systems that we use, the security measures that we use, and our protocols. And also, looking at new technology like Field Worker, where a lot of your active duties can be done very simply, easily, all in one spot.
Mm-hmm. Bill, anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree with what Alex has said. Technology is actually critical. So in your hiring, you want to hire people that are going to be comfortable with technology. And you're looking and you're screening for that in your hiring process. In the very beginning, we hired a couple people that just did not get technology. And we slowly sort of counseled them out of the position because we had to. So we do look for that when we do hire people. And we do provide a lot of training and a lot of support for technology. And then when you implement technology, we really do a lot of work at trying to simplify it. We have our own internal programmers. We work with our internal programmers to make the technology that we deliver as easy and as simple to process as possible. And then we're there for them if they're a little slow with getting it. We're there to work with them. The managers are there to work through to make sure they get it. My managers are good at that. They are comfortable with technology, so that they will walk the person through until they get it. And then once they get it, they get it. You just gotta do it a few times, whatever the process is. And once you get it, it is more comfortable. One of the things that I think Field Worker is in position to do is, as the state agencies integrate their case management notes to the case managers or the support coordinators like we are, so that we can actually literally go in online and have immediate access to iRecord notes. Software like Field Worker is going to be instrumental in being able to deliver that type of platform. And that's very exciting. That will really put updating the note process into a seamless process where not only are you doing it for your company and your time sheet the timesheets that you're doing and the activities that you're doing for your company, but it's automatically feeding into the state system that can then disseminate out to other people in the state that are using the state system. So, and I think that's coming. That's coming in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It's coming for every state in the country. So I find what Fieldworker offers in terms of that capability as a future process is extraordinarily positive.
Right, right. And the use of technology, I think, all of us have seen a major spike in the use of technology, certainly during COVID. Telehealth has just exploded across the board. Remote work has exploded across the board. I know for myself where 2/3 of my staff are remote, but now the entire staff is remote.
That's right.
So, and maintaining those connections with quality of care, caring for your families and your patients is key. So just before we go, we have a short video to play, but any final words before we move over to the video? It's just literally 2 minutes.
Future's exciting. It's uncertain, but embrace it, embrace technology, support your staff, and you'll be successful.
I agree totally with what Alex said. It's having efficient, effective technology to support your staff, and with a well-supported staff, you can support your individuals and your families, and they will be well supported, and their lives will be better. Yeah, quality of care at the end of the day. We're going to move over to a short video. Whilst we're watching the video, I know many of us can multitask. So I would ask that you put your questions in the chat box, and we will return in just a couple of minutes, and we'll start asking some of those questions to Alex and Bill.
Introducing Fieldworker, a case management software which makes the day-to-day lives of human service professionals easier, allowing them to focus more on their clients. Spend more time with your clients through more face-to-face opportunities. As an owner of a human services organization, get real-time insights into your organization. Share information and documents easily and seamlessly with your office and colleagues. Let's log into the app. Use one-touch check-in to ensure safety, electronic visit verification of visit, and record client visit details. Automatic checklists that can be shared between multiple teams, track upcoming tasks, and create reminders that are easy to follow. Easily upload documents while out in the field with organizational tools in place. Get real-time insights into your organization and know what is going on at any time. With Fieldworker, you can simplify your day every day. We take care of the paperwork so you can focus on fieldwork. Visit our website at www.fieldworker.ai for more information.
So thank you for staying with us, those of you still on our symposium here today. We do have a few questions, so I'd like to go through those with you, Bill and Alex, if I may. One of them is actually interesting. It's an answer I actually do not know the answer to, but what are the documentation requirements in New Jersey? Is that load and demand increasing in terms of what you're required to submit to the state agencies?
Well, I think the job overall has changed completely from when Bill and I both started. We're being asked to probably do 100 times more things than we used to in the past. So yeah, I would say that definitely paperwork will change. Documentation will change too as well. And to be successful, you have to be ready to pivot and accept what comes your way. And, if your funding source says, hey, you have to do this, you have to do it. So it's been a completely different ball game over the last few years. And the documentation is increasing.
Bill, anything to add?
Yeah, let me add a couple things. So in New Jersey, we have every new plan needs to be signed by a guardian or the individual, a guardian and the individual, and it has to be uploaded into the state system. The plan has to be approved by a supervisor and it has to be reviewed. There are other documents that need to be uploaded in there in order for the plan to be approved. The supervisor has access to the iRecord system, and you can't begin a plan until all those documents are there and are approved. Audits will check to make sure that you have all those documents uploaded. In New Jersey, we have a monthly summary tool that we call a monitoring tool, where they basically ask life questions and plan questions about the consumer's plan that coordinators have to answer, and then they have to give a summary update on how the month went for that particular consumer. I don't know if other states utilize that type of planning tool, but that becomes our primary billing document for support coordination agencies. So we do, how we protect ourselves is we review all the monitoring tools. Every monitoring tool is reviewed. All the supporting documentation proving the contact, whether it's a visit or a telephone call, is also documented and is reviewed. We do not bill unless we have proof of contact. If the coordinator doesn't have a signature page, that's what we use currently. But in what makes field workers so attractive is that they use the EVV technology to prove that the visit occurred. So that's a very nice, attractive feature to that. And then they can track the phone call because they use the EVV technology, and that is required in New Jersey. So, but we keep track of all that information, and that ensures that we're meeting compliance. Other compliance factors, all staff have to be looked at. Every employee and vendors that we use have to go against a debarment check, a Medicaid state and New Jersey requirement, a federal requirement, to make sure that our staff is not debarred from working in Medicaid. So that has to be done every single month, and we need to have proof of that. With continuing education, we need to have continuing education, 12 credits. That has to be maintained. My human resource coordinator maintains that for our company, and we make sure that we get those continuing education credits. That has to be maintained. When we hire somebody, the resume has to reflect the year of experience working with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities and a college degree. That has to be accessible in the event of an audit. So these are some of the documents that need to be there on a continual basis. We also have, and one of the things that's exploded in the past year because of COVID is, unusual incidents, unusual incident reports. And we have had an increase in those. They have to be reported. COVID occurs, an infection occurs. We have to report it. That has to go in. That's been an increase. And that has to be done on a regular basis. And you are audited on how quickly you get those documents in. If you don't get them in a timely basis, you get demerits. And the UIR unit will tell you, hey, this occurred a week ago. Why didn't you get it in within 48 hours? So there's all these requirements, a lot of paperwork requirements that are required of coordinators and at the agency. And so that's our process in New Jersey. Yeah.
So Alex, how do you train your staff to get ready for an audit? Or do the auditors just sit with the management? Like, is there a role here for your coordinators from an audit perspective?
There certainly is. They're the key person to an audit. They're the ones that are doing the work. The way we operate, and any agency should operate, that auditor should be able to walk through the door at any time, and you should be ready to go for an audit. If you run your agency efficiently and smoothly, and you take the time to set up the systems and processes, you're ready for an audit any day. And I know that Bill does that very well. We do this very well. We're ready and prepared to present the quality of our work. And the way we look at it is, if we do well in an audit, we've done our job correctly, at least in the state's mind. What really makes a big difference to us is how well we do the job with our families.
Right, right. So one question that's come up on the screen here is, someone's running a small support coordination agency and has no budget, right? So we're budget constrained. Many of us are, especially right now. If you have no budget and you want to start implementing technology, where do you start?
Well, that's what's a really great thing about technology now as we move to subscription-based services. They're cost effective. They provide technology to everybody, even on the smallest budgets. If you're looking at a small investment each month per user, it's a lot more expensive than buying an entire system. In the past, we used to buy management systems that were very expensive and that might not be supported in a couple of years from now. So
Right.
as subscription-based services are the wave of the future. They give small businesses the ability to have the technology that larger agencies have. And it's very cost effective because you pay per user in most cases with a subscription. So that's probably the best way to explore is a subscription-based service.
Bill, anything else to add to that?
I would agree with the subscription-based service concept. It really does give you an opportunity. In a lot of the systems we've developed have been homegrown, and I've put a lot of money into creating our own internal systems. When seeing what Fieldworker had to offer, and seeing some of the features that they were offering that would enhance what we're doing, it made it extremely attractive, and made it, something that I was very, very much interested. Some of the features that we were exploring to do internally, we saw that Fieldworker had already done, and we're like, oh, hey, this makes a lot of sense. Let's incorporate what they're doing into what we've already done, and it'll really sing. So I do think the idea of sort of having, so what I would say is look at your operation and identify what you think you could systematize. Look at what software is out there, like Fieldworker, like other products, and say, how could I integrate that? And what cost savings would result from that? It's not so much that you're adding costs, it's that you're either making your operation more efficient, you're reducing potential exposure and liability, or you're actually reducing processing cost. When billing, which we were doing semi-autonomously, and over the last 2 years have been working to make it totally autonomous and system driven. My lead administration officer was spending probably on billing 15 to 20 hours a month just trying to get the system to work right.
Right.
Well, now it's finally working right, and guess what? It's 2 minutes. So,
right.
So when you get it to finally work, it really cuts down on the time that people are spending. So you can redirect that time into improving your support systems, and that's really what you want to do. You want to reduce the time spent on processing, make it efficient, quick, easy, and then focus the time on support and helping your staff and of course the families and the individuals that the families are supporting, and the individuals themselves that they're living independently, so that they have a better life.
Yeah, some of our chat box and Q&A is concurring with you both, always being ready for an audit and looking at billing systems that really help support and save time, right? And improve your audit.
Say something on the audit. I just want to add something. We've had more and more remote audits being done rather than.
I was going to ask if they're remote or in person.
Yeah. I will say that most of the audits that we've experienced and so far have been remotely done by the state. And in fact, we're from an advocacy standpoint and a trade group point of view, we're actually pushing to find out, can you give us the results of our audits, even if we're doing a good job? What are you looking at? Because we don't even know what they're looking at. Oh yeah, you guys are doing a great job. But, well, what does that mean? What are you actually looking at to say we're doing a great job?
Right.
So,
right.
That is something that we're pushing from a trade group perspective to try to identify. But I think it is important that, around the country and different states are listening in. If you're a state manager, you want to make sure that the companies that are delivering your privatized services, if you have that platform, or even your managers that may have regional offices that they're responsible for, what are you measuring? What are you measuring? What are you looking for? So that we know, and give us the results so that we know if we have a problem, we can address it, we can fix it, or if we're doing well, what are you looking at to show that we're doing well? And that would be something important that would help everybody around the country.
I agree with you. You need that transparency in order to build those best practices and share those best practices, right? So that's what it's all about. I have a somewhat of an operational question for Bill. It's really to do with some of paperwork in your plan. What does your agency do when there's no legal guardian and the person is unable to sign their plan? Maybe that's an Alex question, or Bill.
Go ahead, either one. Alex, if you want to take it.
It must happen, right? That there's no legal guardian to sign anything.
It depends on what state the person might be in. They might have a Bureau of Guardian Services guardian, or otherwise they may be their own guardian. And in that case, if they don't have a legal guardian, they're probably their own guardian at this time. Whether they should be or shouldn't be is debatable. But if they don't have a Bureau of Guardian Services guardian, then the individual could sign that plan.
Right. And we do have one other. Yeah. Sorry, Bill.
That's correct. In New Jersey, what Alex said, that's what we do.
Right. We do have one other comment asking if we're talking about group homes or direct support services. And in this context, we're really talking about direct support services, correct?
Well,
or are we talking about group homes?
We're talking about services in group homes and family homes. We serve everybody in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody has an individualized budget in the state of New Jersey. So whether you're in a group home, whether you're served in the community or living with parents in the community, everybody gets an individualized budget. The budget is greater if someone's living in a group home. There's a larger waiver, a larger amount of money that's available to them. It's also available to families in their home. If they need additional supports in the home, they want to retain the person at home, that higher budget is also available at home. But it's all a fee-for-service platform, both the higher budgeted platform and they call it the supports platform coming out of high school, and people living with their families or able to live independently. Right. It's all fee-for-service. All the services are pretty much exactly the same. And it's just larger amounts.
Right. So I thank you both for your time today. We're actually coming to the end of our webinar time. We will be providing this as a recording to anyone that would like it. Just email Nicole. I'm sure she'll send it out to you. And if by chance there's any questions that we haven't answered, we will get back to you in writing. So I just want to thank all of you for your time. I also want to thank Bill and Alex. You really are a vital link in my mind in the healthcare continuum. Without you, we wouldn't be taking great care of people in the communities. And that's really what it's about. We need to keep people healthy, keep them at home, keep them well, and keep them out of hospitals. And with that said, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving to everyone that's listening. And perhaps I look forward to another webinar at another time. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.